Hey everyone, I'm ZSH Plays. Welcome to Velociraptor Valley. I had so much fun building this. This is the last habitat to go into our Jurassic Park recreation. I'll show you how I built it later on in the video. But before we do that, we need to build Stegosaurus South. So this is going to be a really sizable habitat. It's got 4 Stegosaurus in it, same as the book. So those guys are going to need quite a lot of room. And this is going to be one of the habitats where the jeeps actually drive through it rather than just past it, which I think is how it is in the book. They certainly see a sick Stegosaurus, try saying that quickly, and stop to help with the vet. Same as the scene in the film, but they switched it out for a Triceratops in the film. So I'm assuming the jeep ride actually goes through the habitat. So like I say, I'm going to give them a load of room. So we've got a lot of terrain work and planting to do to make this look nice. There's a really beautiful island in the back as well on this map, which I'd never noticed until I started building this habitat. It's a shame I couldn't incorporate it into the habitat, but it would have just been ridiculously large if I'd done that. So it's just kind of there in the background. So on the right hand side of the road, I'm going to have pretty thick vegetation to give it a sort of jungly feel. And then on the left hand side of the road, it's going to be pretty open so that you can see the dinosaurs from the Jeep tour. Now, it's a bit unclear in the book exactly what happens to the tour at this point. So at this stage in the novel, when they're in Stegosaurus South, this is where Grant finds a raptor egg on the ground, which is a bit of a clue that things aren't going very well in the park and that they may potentially be in danger. So at that point, they get back in the cars and begin the journey back to the visitor centre, which is when the storm starts and the T-Rex gets out and all hell breaks loose. So I don't know if the tour actually went on further from here or if this was actually the end of the tour anyway. I'm assuming it was a loop because when they decide to go back to the visitor centre, they drive back the way they came. With there being a storm, raptors around, etc., and the kids are whinging about being hungry, then you're obviously going to take the shortest route back to the visitor centre. And if that's back the way you came, that means one of two things. Either this point the tour is less than halfway round, which, considering we've seen all the dinosaurs on the list with the exception of the couple that are never mentioned, which I'm assuming were in with the Triceratops or the Stegosaurus anyway, I've got to assume that they must have been more than halfway through the tour, in which case the tour must therefore have been a loop, just going back the way they came rather than completing the very end of the loop and going back would be the quickest way back to the visitor centre. So that's my interpretation anyway. If you think anything different or if you know anything different, let me know in the comments as always. So I would like to make this a loop, and I've sort of replicated that with how I've laid the road out, but you can't have loops in Jurassic World Evolution 2, so the tour actually carries on from here and goes into the sauropod swamp, which you've seen in the distance already, and now you get to drive right past it, and you'll get to see exactly how that works tomorrow. I'm going to be doing a video of the whole Jeep tour and editing that nicely so that you can experience the whole tour. We'll make sure there's no no-shows or anything like that, like there is in the book. Time now to throw in as many rocks as I can fit into this enclosure. I love rocks, and you just cannot have too many of them when you're making a habitat. They just make everything look so much more interesting, especially in a sort of tropical island like this. There's going to be exposed rocks everywhere, and it really just makes things stand out, livens up boring areas. I'm going to make a little rock island in the middle of this sort of lake slash pond thing here. You can see the gates for the tour there. That is where they exit and then drive along up into Sauropod Swamp, and then it loops round back past Hypsilophodont Highlands and gets you back to the visitor centre. So let's get the Stegosaurs in. I really like these dinosaurs. They are very well modelled in this game. Just very impressive, I think. We've got another dinosaur to add as well, which is one that was all over the park rather than in its own enclosure, and that of course is the Compys. So in the book it is Compsognathus, in Jurassic World Evolution 2 we have Compsognathus. It's not actually closely related at all, but the reason they called it Pro-Compsognathus was that it looked a lot like Compsognathus, so it should be a pretty good match. And these are going to go out all over the park into loads of different habitats and just run around doing their thing. I love the fact that these guys are transported via helicopter in this game. It's got to be one of the biggest waste of resources in history to use an entire helicopter to transport a single dinosaur that's about the size of a chicken, but I do enjoy that. So with the compies in place, it's time to get on with building Velociraptor Valley. So this isn't described at all in the book, which is great because it means I can just do whatever the hell I want with it. So I've come up with a design that plays on the fact that it's got the word valley in the title. I'm assuming it was in a valley, that would make sense. So I decided to come up with a rocky bare valley bed rather than the lush greenery in the rest of the park, which will make it stand out nicely. I think it's a really good setting for an animal like the Velociraptor, which was in Jurassic Park at least, such a sort of vicious and dangerous animal. So it's all going to be bare rock. There'll be a little bit of water, a little pool at one end of it, and yeah, I just really went to town on trying to make a fairly scary environment for them, which I really like. In the book we only know there's a Velociraptor Valley because it appears on the list of habitats that you can view the cameras from in the hotel rooms. You can sort of surmise they must have had the raptors in there at some point, because the majority of the park's problems have been caused by the raptors, and that is why they've ended up just keeping them in a holding pen rather than allowing them free access to their enclosure in the park. So there wouldn't have been any raptors in Velociraptor Valley at the time of the book, but the habitat itself, as far as I'm aware, did exist and had held raptors. They just moved them out for safety reasons. So for the purposes of this park, we are obviously going to have the raptors in here. Otherwise there won't be any raptors, and who wants that? I'm hiding away all the fences around the valley, and then I'll paint the trees back in afterwards so you can't really see them. We'll get a couple of goat feeders in there for them to keep them happy, or as happy as a raptor ever gets. And that is Velociraptor Valley done. Thank you so much for watching. As always, stick around for the cinematics so you can see it in its full glory, along with the Stegosaurus South. I'll be back tomorrow with a full Jeep tour of the entire park. Let's get them in there. Thanks for watching. Bye.